Hello and welcome to Creating Canon with your hosts AJ Hamilton and Noodle Nerderbaum?
Needle Nerderbob?
Needle Nerderbaum.
That's fine.
Yep.
Whatever.
Needle Nerdbaum.
Needle Nerdbound.
Also known as Nicholas C. Pappas.
Yep.
What does the C stand for? Did we settle this a while ago?
I'm
sure we did.
Stands for Nerdlebaum.
I know that.
Needle Nerderbaum.
Needle Nerderbaum.
It stands for canon.
Duh.
What else would it stand for?
Creating Canon Pappas.
Yep, that's what it stands for. And today,
oh right, we have a thing to do. We are talking about the 1972. What are we considering this?
man, this is a hard one.
So it's called in America, The Lady in Red Kills 7 Times. Slightly unwieldy title.
Yeah,
I would say.
So it's So in America, The Lady in Red Kills 7 Times was released in 1976.
Right.
But the actual movie is called The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, and it was released in, I believe, Italy in 1972.
Got it.
So this is a pre-Go-Go Boys years. I believe a lot of early canon, it seems like, were foreign films that were then brought over to America by the Canon Group at that time,
Right.
and released. So this is a Italian/German co-production. I mean, it was shot in Germany.
It was shot in Germany. Was the director Italian?
Everyone was Italian.
Everyone else.
The director and the screenwriter.
Right. Okay.
We're both Italian.
Yep. And the caterers.
I'm
pretty sure.
And that's it.
Yeah.
This is
all that matters.
This is such an interesting one to me. It follows a tradition of film that I love. It's the giallo film.
Now, officially, is this the first giallo film that we've done?
Well,
because we've done stuff that feels like it before.
I would say Schizoid
right.
definitely borrows heavily from the giallo genre.
Okay.
If you're unfamiliar with giallo, it's an Italian form of
pulp film.
Yeah.
Would you say?
So to kind of like step this back, when the Greek crime novels by like Agatha Christie were translated to Italian, they were marketed as like these pulp novels that all came in like a yellow jacket cover.
Interesting.
So giallo in Italian is yellow.
Oh.
It's sort of a Italian crime thriller is usually what it's thought of. It's like a mystery movie.
Right.
Or like a detective story. But specifically what the Italians did, and I think these are like the hallmarks of what I consider like to be a giallo film, are the black glove killer.
Black glove, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
like the black leather gloves. Oftentimes it's somebody that the stand-in for the detective is oftentimes somebody who's not actually a detective.
An outsider.
Yeah, like an outsider of sorts.
Sure.
Who witnesses a crime, who sees a crime, and then goes on a journey to try to solve that crime or be killed themselves while people around them start dying.
Right.
So it's often like women with who murdered in a grisly ways.
Okay.
A lot of stabbings.
Ooh,
a lot of point of view shots. A lot of close ups to hide the
point of view murderer shots. Right.
Yeah. Point of view. That's what I. Yeah. Did I?
No,
not
you
say
just
that?
You said point of view shots.
Yes, point of view of the murderer.
Right.
Yes. Thank you for translating my brain.
You filled it. Yeah. Filled it in your brain.
It's a lot of like POV from the murderer shots. A lot of close-ups during the killings. A lot of blood.
Yeah.
And I always think of numbers being in the title or animals being in the title.
Interesting.
Because you got like Four Flies on Grey Velvet.
Right.
You've got The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. You got Cat o' Nine Tails, which are all early Dario Argento films.
Sure.
Don't Torture a Duckling. The Blood and Black Lace, which in Italian the original title was Six Women for the Killer, 6 Girls for the Killer, something to that effect.
You're asking the wrong guy.
I know, I really am. A lot of these have that longer, the lizard in a woman's skin. The night Evelyn came out of the grave is another one.
Interesting.
So
Evelyn, really?
Yeah. Which is actually the night Evelyn came out of the grave. We should mention that this is directed by Emilio Miraglia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Sounds right. Yeah. Hard G, I think.
Hard G. Directed 3 films in Italian: The Vatican Affair,
Okay.
The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, and The Lady in Red Kills 7 Times / The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, whatever. Right. But then he made 3 American films called as Hal Brady, which I think is really funny.
Hal Brady?
Hal Brady.
Perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, so like,
nice.
This is one of those, I love horror in general. I think that might be pretty documented on this podcast.
I think so.
And I love the giallo. I mean, I am fairly new to the giallo genre. I don't know it as extensively as other things. I've seen a ton, but I feel like I've barely breached the surface.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons I love it is it's really connected to what I would consider like our modern day slasher films, right? So like,
right,
or not even modern day, but like the slashers of the 80s.
The reinvention of, well, not reinvention, just the beginning of slasher films.
Yeah, like Halloween is definitely like, it's got those elements because we have point of view.
Sure.
We've got mostly young ladies. There's a lot of nudity in giallo films.
Sure.
There's a lot of like borderline sexploitation. Oh, and the other thing too, which I think drove you crazy in this movie, because
let's talk about the dubbing.
Yes, because
holy crap, man! Literally the first thing, because you had told me there was going to be dubbing in this, and I was like, okay, sure, yeah, I've seen dubbed films before. I've seen anime. I've seen other things. I'm cultured, and then I wrote, oh, this kind of dubbing.
Yeah,
because. Wow.
I mean, it's, to me, there's something beautiful about because, I mean, on the Blu-ray that we have, it's the beautiful Blu-ray from Arrow Films. Shout out to Arrow, give us free stuff. I mean, wait, what?
That's all the reason people do things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, we need a lot of movies on this podcast.
We do.
And Arrow has released a lot of canon films. So
let's go for it.
Let's beg them, kind of.
Give us a download code.
Something like that. We'll take it. But there is both the Italian version and then there is the English version.
Right.
And I chose the English version because to me, giallo is always dubbed. Like, that's the way it is.
Interesting. Yeah.
But here's the crazy part, and I was telling you during the movie, is that the way they shot a lot of these, they just hired actors from anywhere and everywhere.
This sounds like the most disorganized, odd way to do things. Please go ahead. Describe this.
So what'll happen is they'll have a scene that maybe has in this movie. There are many scenes with 3 people.
Sure.
One of them might be an American actor, one of them might be a German actor, and one of them might be an Italian actor. They all speak their native language, and then it's dubbed later on. So
what?
Yeah, so like even if we watch the Italian version, technically it's still going to be completely dubbed.
Right. And it definitely sounded like it sometimes. Certain times it sounded like 2 people in a car were in different rooms.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
It was it's amazing because like in one scene there will be people whose words are perfectly synced to their mouths.
Right.
And then someone responds and whatever they're saying does not match their mouth whatsoever.
And I don't think I would have noticed this unless... I mean, I would have noticed that, but I wouldn't have noticed something if you hadn't told me that they were just told or knew when in the script their line came.
Yeah.
And I could actually tell every once in a while when somebody was just waiting for their line. Now, maybe that's just bad acting. But also, maybe it's just... It was that they were like... Okay, it looks like they're done with their thought, and now I go with my English. Did they do different scripts then? Did they translate the scripts into different languages?
That I'm not sure. They must have,
right?
To get that to work. I don't know. That's actually a great question.
I guess it's the pages on the day. That you had to learn.
Yeah, you would probably. Yeah,
all that mattered.
I'm assuming too that a lot of the actors learned English phonetically.
Bizarre, man.
Rather than, so it's probably, I mean, it probably comes out because it doesn't have to be clear. It just has to sort of match the voice, right, or match the mouth movements.
It's almost like in old silent films where they would talk back and forth, and it would essentially be an improv, a Christopher Guest movie, or something where it had, or Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they had a start and an end, and then they would just fill in on the title card with the dialogue.
Wait, so you're saying...
Like in a silent movie.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, it's like, I don't think it's quite that in that... Wait,
no, it wouldn't be. I know that there is a much more concrete
I'm on to you.
But
yes.
it sort of didn't matter. Even if they wanted a different line by the end of it,
right? They could
probably throw it in, and like Japanese dubbing or something like that, you have to jump in and fit those words into that mouth movement. Yeah.
I think yes.
It was a much more complicated comparison than actually needed to be.
No,
I was just trying to sound smart, man.
Followed. I got there. Man. So now that we've given the startup of what giallo is,
right? Which we should probably fascinating in itself.
Yeah,
we could do a whole episode on this.
We can. Yeah, I mean that could be another podcast. Is giallo films where it's just a million of them.
You heard it
So
first. This
crazy.
Is the beginning of the spin-off series, Creating Giallo.
Yeah.
Or
Gyrating giallo.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah,
gyrating giallo. Nope. I don't like it.
Going Giallo.
Which
is Going Yellow.
Oh my god, that's like our summer spin-off.
I think so.
What are you guys doing? We're going Giallo. Woo!
It also sounds like gelato, and I'm hungry.
Now I am hungry.
I know.
Giallo Gelato, which is just us shoving gelato in our faces while watching or talking about giallo films.
We found it, everyone.
You know what? Fuck this. I'm done with this podcast.
Yeah, why are we
There is no
still
food
doing
involved.
This? Screw it. Creating canon.
Ugh.
Creating corn dogs in canon. That would have been better.
Yes, I was going to say cake, but I like corn dogs better, so let's do it. Yeah.
I need something
hearty before we get into the ice cream.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is the main course. That's the after.
We need an appetizer though. Ugh.
Ooh. All right. We'll figure something else for that.
We'll do that later.
But what is this movie about? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So wait, hold on. I have to do the voice, right?
Oh, please, yes.
I didn't write it down.
Oh,
so
good. I'm excited about this one, then.
We can dub this in later, however we wish.
Oh, can we
I'm
dub it?
I'm going to speak whatever language I want,
I love
and we're going to dub it in later. Ready?
Go.
2 young women hear of a curse of the Red Queen. The curse states... This is terrible. The curse states that in the past, the Black Queen killed the Red Queen. And in revenge, the Red Queen came back and killed 7 people related to the Black Queen. The Black Queen being number 7. Now it's 1972. And one sister has killed another. Jesus Christ.
Sure.
Long story short,
this is a very complicated.
It's so complicated.
Movie. I will be the first to admit, if Nick wasn't going to drag me, about having to reverse the movie multiple times to understand who somebody was, where they were going, where they were, what their names was, what their haircut was, because I will say there are a lot of white blondish women with mod haircuts.
Yes,
that I could not figure out.
It was tough. Can I read the IMDb?
Please do.
Thing
do it
so
in
that
your voice,
way.
Though
you want me to do it in the
Please.
voice? Okay, so I'm just going to read the IMDb version because it's going to be a lot clearer than what I just did. When 2 sisters inherit their family castle, a string of murders committed by a mysterious dark-haired woman in a red cloak decimates their circle of friends. Is the killer their ancestor, the Red Queen, whom legend says claims 7 lives every 100 years?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
All right, good casting.
The end. So this is very hard to talk about.
Yeah, just because plot-wise,
well,
it's
first
insane.
of all, figuring that there has to be 7 murders by the end of it, and regardless of if the curse is real or not, there has to be at least 7 main characters that we at least slightly care about.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and 8 if you consider there has to be a murderer.
Oh, well, yeah.
And then 9 if you consider that one of those people has to see the murder and be like, oh man, that's a bummer.
Right?
Why did you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was a lot of stopping and rewinding and replaying.
Yeah.
And I think some of my favorite was, it was like at least twice there was like a, can we stop and rewind this?
Yeah.
And it was like, stop, it's rewound, and then there was at least twice where you were like, I'm still confused. And then like 4 seconds later, if we would have just kept going, it filled in contextually what exactly was missing earlier.
That's the weirdest thing about this movie. There are a couple of times where essentially the storytelling is out of sync. Like there's one point where this guy gets murdered and you're like, wait, why are they there? Why are they in this park? Why is she walking with this other girl, talking with her? And then it goes into a police interrogation and rewinds about 40-50 seconds before the murder happens, and then you're like, oh, cool, thanks for that. Why did you could have just told a straight narrative and then jumped to the thing. But I suppose it kept it jumping along, kept you guessing.
Well, I think that's part of like that Agatha Christie murder mystery kind of like aspect to it, right? Is like it is told in such an order that we are constantly questioning, like, wait, what's happening now?
Right.
And that's actually something that
it's kind of cool. By the end of it, I was completely down with it because I got the rhythm.
Right.
But I will warn anybody watching this, or if they're similar, any other giallo films, that
this one's a little more jumpy than most giallo films, but
cool.
It's not. But it does track. I mean, it does track a very, very similarly.
I just feel like you've got to sort of get into. It's from 1972. So also the editing style and the speech patterns and everything are much different from today. Although, you look at American movies from this time, they were more along the lines that we have come to appreciate.
But I would say they're all paced differently, because this is a slower pace.
Oh, very much.
I feel like movies of the
everything's
70s,
gotten much faster.
Yeah. What I really liked about this movie, I actually really dug this movie a lot. I'm a big fan of this kind of thing, and I thought they did some really great things here. And one of those things as a writer they always talk about is there's a difference between mystery and confusion, and you can create mystery, and that's great because an audience will like want to lean into the mystery to find out what's next. I mean, it's one of those things that it's forward, right? Like, because it basically makes you lean forward into the movie, and it makes you want to know what comes next. Yeah. Confusion means that the audience disengages because they're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And what I dug about this, and I thought what it did particularly well, is it created enough mystery in the moment. Like, there were times where I was actually confused, but within like 10 seconds that confusion was cleared up.
Yeah.
And I think I have an idea of why they did this, and maybe this kind of goes into like what I would call canon for later on, something to think about. Is, for me, what that created was I was trying to constantly figure out moment to moment things. Okay. To the point where it allowed me to almost step away from the trying to figure out who the killer was, because I was trying to figure out the moment. So it delayed as long as possible me trying to figure out who the killer was. Does that make sense?
Yes. It really does. It's a distraction from the inevitability.
Yeah, because I think we would have known. I think I would have maybe figured it out a little. Well,
I don't know. It's a jumble of information to take in to obfuscate the possible killers.
Yes.
Weirdly, we find out very early on in this movie that there is already a murder.
Yeah, so there's two main characters. There is Kitty. This is even hard because it's not even. That's not even correct. The movie opens on two little girls playing. Right. One is a blonde and one is a brunette. The blonde's name is Kitty. The brunette's name is Evelyn, and they are at each other's throats. They hate each other. They're like 10, and they hate each other. Yeah. And in fact, Evelyn tries to actually kill Kitty in the opening like minute of the movie as like 10-year-olds.
Right. Which were also dubbed by, I believe, their
45-year-old adults.
45-year-old adult dubbers.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
That is 100%.
Was real weird.
Yeah. But then we cut to what is essentially present day, which is 1972 in the movie. And And this is where we both got very confused right off the bat, because all of a sudden we're with a blonde woman.
And another blonde woman.
Well, first we were with the blonde woman, which I think we assumed was Kitty.
Right.
But it actually turns out that there is another cousin, we think.
Or
maybe sister?
Maybe sister, maybe cousin, because her husband, Francisca's husband, Herbert, said, "Oh, you don't like your brother-in-law."
Speaking about himself.
You're right.
Oh, motherfucker! This is
uneven.
Yep. So just like
uneven.
This is just to blow past this part. I mean, we could probably spend 3 hours trying to decipher this.
Right.
I'm just gonna do like the whole long story short thing.
Sure.
Where
seems like a theme. Today.
I think this is what we have to do, right?
Yeah.
So Francisca takes care of this elderly man named Tobias, who is her grandfather.
And also Kitty's grandfather.
And also we find out is Kitty's grandfather. Right. It turns out that Kitty, about a year prior, killed Evelyn on accident because Evelyn attacked her.
Right.
Kitty slammed her head up against the wall and she died.
Right. Yeah.
And the end. No, and they,
make a great ending.
Francesca, her husband, Herbert, and Kitty hid the body of Evelyn
in the crypt,
in like a crypt of a castle, and then just started to tell everybody that she went ahead and went to America, and that's why she's not been around.
Yep.
Grandfather sees an image of Kitty, or I'm sorry,
or Evelyn.
Yep. Has a heart attack and dies.
Right.
And that's what kicks everything off. Yes. Right.
Inciting incident.
Throughout the movie, there's just a bunch of murders.
Yeah, there. Let me run it.
Do you want to run through the murders and how they died?
And I think I can do this pretty well. Kitty works at Springer, which is a modeling firm.
Yeah.
Right? Her boss, the general manager Hans, gets stabbed while he's picking up an escort for a threesome with
Lulu, played by Sybil Danning.
Who is a model for the agency.
Yep.
Then we get one of the assistants, Lenora. She gets stabbed because she thinks she knows who the murderer is. She gets thrown in the back of a van, driven who knows where, hours away apparently.
No, I think it was actually minutes, but it could have been hours.
It felt
the way
like the changing of the scenery was. She gets stabbed as well. I thought she was going to get strangled by those garment bags because those are not toys.
They're
children.
not toys.
They're not
toys.
Right
on there.
That is the third murder. Well, we call the grandfather's murder a murder, but she was intending to stab him,
but he died of a heart attack.
So that's first death. We're on the third murder. Then, Kitty is dating this married man named Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And he
has taken over the company from the original guy, Hans, who was murdered earlier.
That's right. And so he is a suspect, obviously. I think their affair is secret or not. We don't know. But Martin has a crazy wife in the crazy town. Not the crazy town, in the asylum. He goes to visit her. She says, "Oh, Evelyn comes to visit me, didn't you know?" And so that is a new connection to the murders. One night, Evelyn, quote unquote, draws her out to the fence of the asylum, says she's going to free her. She throws a rope ladder over the fence, and as Martin's wife, the crazy lady, is climbing over the fence in one of the best
This was such a great murder moment.
She cuts the
rope
ladder
so that way her feet aren't on anything.
Yep. And her chin goes through one of the spikes on the fence.
It was such a good,
holy crap.
It was crazy.
Wow, man.
Both of us were like, oh!
I didn't expect that. I thought that it was going to just be another stab, because as of now, we've had heart attack, stab, now fence. She had the knife.
The dagger. She used the dagger to slice the rope ladder.
Exactly. Then we get this weird side story that actually started at the beginning, but Evelyn's ex-boyfriend, or boyfriend, but she died, he's trying to
find out what happened to her, because he doesn't believe she went to America.
But he's also
a heroin junkie
and blackmailing Kitty, right? So he stops by her place one time to steal some money from her, and then he goes and delivers it to a secretary from the office
whose name is Rosemary.
Her name is Rosemary. We've run into her a little bit throughout, but there are so many characters in this that they sort of zigzag in and out. It's hard to follow where everybody is and what motivation, but in this scene we find out, oh, he's sharing his heroin with her? Was that what happened?
I think he's feeding her the heroin.
Right, or gum. It looked like
gum, but it was definitely heroin.
Definitely heroin. And he's like, nah, she doesn't have any more money. He goes back to Kitty's house, and we think Evelyn shows up in her red hood, because she's the Red Queen.
She's the Red Queen.
And she invites him into her car, and then,
this was a great murder, too.
And then she just grabs his coat and slams the door on it, and then drives away.
So he then falls down face first, like face skidding the asphalt.
Yep.
She's like swerving back and forth. She eventually swerves all the way to the side, and his head
up
and
onto
body
the embankment,
embankment, and there's like a telephone pole
too,
and it's just like bonk.
Spoilers for Hereditary, but
yeah,
very hereditary.
In a very hereditary like moment.
Ooh, yes.
Then she just opens the door and like his body just starts like rolling. That was an awesome death.
Absolutely.
That was so good.
All this time, I like that we're describing it by the deaths, because all this time, Kitty and Martin are sort of just being interrogated back and forth because of these murders, and they're kind of almost just the characters that things are happening to, or happening around. They don't really have much agency, I would say.
I feel like that is a thing that kind of happens in a lot of giallo films, right, where things sort of happen to characters to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then they realize that they have to take action or they will die soon as well.
Absolutely.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, I feel like that's
they're
sort
trusting
of a hallmark.
Justice, or they're trusting the people around them, and then they realize, oh no, I can't trust anyone.
Or often what happens is, like, when they go to authorities, the authorities are like, you're a fucking Looney Tunes.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Or you make no sense. I mean, and then at that point they're like, oh shit, well I guess I better
gotta take it on myself.
Go ahead and figure this out.
Gotta Rambo this shit up.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, next death. That is numero 5. Evelyn is making these freaky calls to a bunch of people, actually.
Yes.
And, we forgot to mention, Lulu is having an affair with Martin as well. So he had a wife, a mistress, and a side piece.
Oh my god. And Sybil Danning has the best line in the movie where she's talking about Kitty, who is dealing with the death of her grandfather and like the curse, and she's freaking out. And Lulu says, well, she's not burning at the short and curlies now, is she? And that's the line. She's not burning up the short and curlies. that makes Martin go, you know what?
Good point.
I will fuck you.
Yeah. And also, I love the reveal of Sybil Danning. Him turning around to, I don't know, get a smoke or something.
Yes.
Turning around. No rustling of clothing or anything. She is spread out on the
fully
nude.
Within like 12 seconds. Again, it was one of those moments where
she's the Batman of stripping.
I actually found it shocking. Like when the camera cut to her, I actually made AJ. This is like one of the few times where I was like, can we rewind that? Because
I was like, did you not follow the story there?
Because I feel like because it wasn't the nudity. I was so confused. I was like, when did that happen?
Yep.
How did she get like what? It was kind of like I actually have to say, like,
yeah,
it was so shocking that like I actually dug that moment too, because I was like, well, that was crazy and completely unexpected.
Insane choices in this. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. I think there were odd cutaways to things sometimes. They didn't necessarily establish where they were sometimes.
Totally.
But there's a lot of things that worked.
This is one of those things that I'm going to like toss into like something that I learned. And when it worked, it really worked. And when it didn't, it really didn't. Mm-hmm. And that's the way the moments are actually cut together. So like there was a scene where the police detective... who's never actually named. I think he's just the inspector.
Yeah, right.
Is
Freddie Mercury, you mean?
Yeah, he looks exactly like Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury is talking to somebody and interrogating them.
Yeah.
And then it like cuts to a close-up of Freddie Mercury asking like the next question. The camera pans out. He's talking to somebody else.
He's in a boardroom or something like that.
Yeah, he's
right?
in a boardroom talking to a different person.
Yes.
And what was cool about the shot was the question that he was talking to, and I think he might have been Rosemary. He asked a question of Rosemary directly about Martin. Rosemary answered. Right. And then he asked the next question, and when we pan back, he was talking to Martin. And it was a little off-putting in some ways, but also I was like, this is great. Like, if used correctly, this could be an awesome fucking device.
And they actually did it another time where Martin was confronting Kitty about what the hell was going on, and they were in the middle of a park, and then they turned, and they were both in his apartment. But it had been, the background was like his window or something.
Yes.
So it fit the transition. Odd transitions like that. There are worse transitions. There are other like cuts or transitions or cutting from basically a scene that is sort of wrapping up into a woman running away, and you're like, wait, okay, I get that this isn't a continuation of that scene,
but contextually, what the fuck is happening?
Where are we at right now? So that's jarring. I like those ones that you're talking about. I think those are very aesthetically pleasing almost, because you understand it's a continuation of the scene, but it's moving, it's traveling.
Right.
So I get that. Also, about that scene, transitioning into that scene where he's confronting Kitty about what has happened in her life. Well, she admits that a year ago, she accidentally killed Evelyn. He basically sides with her, says, all right, well, I'm being accused of it. You actually might have done it because you might be an accidental murderer. But he says this insanely translated line in the whole movie. It was, we're both in difficulty now.
Yes. We're
like,
both in difficulty now.
That was like Google translated twice.
Totally.
Why did you
Well,
do
that's
that?
the thing is, like, this was written by two Italian dudes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then definitely translated to English. So
you're
right.
That's the odd thing, is that a lot of the other stuff was just modern parlance of America or whatever they were going for.
Right.
Germany.
Well, but I have to say some of that early exposition that feels super clunky probably has to do with...
Oh, I don't agree. I don't agree with you. No,
you don't agree with me? It has to do with the translation issues, right? Like,
that's very true. But that was the one that really stuck out.
That one definitely did stick out.
Jumping back into the murder stuff, as I said, there is some creepy calls from quote-unquote Evelyn, and they call Lulu for some reason, right?
Yes.
Why does she call Lulu?
I think it's Lulu? Just to get her there so she can kill her. Like the murderer, Evelyn / the murderer, can kill Lulu and then blame it on Kitty, because she calls Lulu there.
Yes.
And then she calls Kitty right after.
That's right. And when Lulu gets there, Herbert, Francisca's husband, is like lurking around there, and then he runs up the stairs to hide. Then Lulu comes in. Then we get one of those classic POV shots of the murderer who
shoots Lulu
with a silencer, cleans off the gun of fingerprints. Then Kitty gets there, and Herbert comes down, or he scares her away. I don't remember what happens.
I think Kitty just scares Herbert away.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't think Herbert was there when Lulu died. I think Herbert got there after Lulu died.
Oh, and then
was
hid. There for Kitty.
And then was there for Kitty, hid. And then when the police showed up out of nowhere.
That was a confusing couple of things, because we didn't know why Herbert was lurking around there, around the dead body. But it was sort of to make us think that maybe he did it, or...
Yeah. This is the first time where on the table there's just a bunch of pictures of Evelyn.
Oh, right.
And then there's a bunch of like latex and wigs and like makeup stuff.
Yes.
Where all of a sudden it's clear that it's like, oh...
Somebody
this is
dressing
like Evelyn. It's not actually Evelyn.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we go back to the castle.
Right. Kitty drove from there to the castle, right? And
yes. And then Martin... Oh, this is the thing.
Yes.
Martin, who is Kitty's boyfriend, who's also... And Martin's also sleeping with Lulu, and he's got the wife who, was impaled earlier.
Sure.
He goes to a lawyer's office and steals a will.
Yeah.
And we find out, I'm just going to give it away at this point.
Sure.
We find out in that moment...
There are four
inheritors.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 is Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is Francisca.
Yes.
Number 3 is the person who we thought was Evelyn. And it turns out it was just a poor farmer girl who was bought by the grandfather,
or adopted, let's say.
Well, it actually said she was bought.
She bought?
The family sold her to the grandfather.
Yep.
So that way, the real Evelyn, who turns out is Rosemary, can be sent to another home.
Right.
So that way, the curse could be broken.
Now, I know that we've just dropped a lot on you.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot on me too.
Hopefully you've watched this movie, because otherwise it's not going to make any sense. But when do you think that they made the adoption? And when they were babies?
Yes.
Or when he started realizing that she was possessed by...
Oh, I think it was as babies. I think he always believed the story. And as soon as Evelyn was born, like he went ahead and like gave Evelyn away.
But don't you think that he was a little freaked out that this new Evelyn, the adopted Evelyn, was reacting to the painting?
Well, that brings this really interesting question that the movie, I think, touches upon but doesn't like dive deep down into.
Right.
Is the idea of like what makes people sisters,
right,
or what makes people family? Is it the fact that they grew up together, or is it actual heritage?
Right.
Because if you're told you're sisters, if you're raised as sisters, if you're told about a curse from the very second you're born, and you don't know that you're not sisters, you're sisters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the curse itself wasn't supernatural.
Right.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy because, so to ruin it more, Franziska was actually behind most of it because she wanted it all for herself.
She wanted all the money herself.
She teamed up with Rosemary.
She told Rosemary the truth.
Right. She set her off on the murdering spree, though.
Yes.
And then she stabbed her at the very end.
And then she killed Rosemary at the end. And then it turns out, in a flashback, Francesca admits that she is actually the one who killed who we thought was Evelyn at the beginning of the movie.
And Evelyn was actually just knocked unconscious.
She was knocked unconscious.
In the water.
Yeah, and Kitty knocked her unconscious on accident, didn't actually kill her. Right. And then Evelyn actually murdered her in order to...
There's a lot of blood to be not dead.
Yeah. I mean, that's a giallo trope.
But still. So, yes, a bunch of people are dead. Rosemary is in the mask of Evelyn and stumbles out of the crypt or wherever they're being held.
Oh, there's also the fake Evelyn, who we understand to be the real Evelyn.
Yep.
Earlier in the movie, there's this great moment where they go downstairs and find, like, they've kept her body. So it's this really creepy fucking mummified body.
Right.
That's just sort of in this, like, hidden room. Which I want to say that I thought that was a great set piece. Yeah. It's a great moment. But then there was like a real funny, unintentional thing.
The second
time she goes to find the body, she opens the door and the body sort of like starts falling out. And she's like, ah! And then like slams the body back in.
Yeah, that was so unintentionally funny.
Oh, it cracked me up.
I loved that so much.
Yeah.
And then she opens the door.
The second door.
And I love this parallel because Rosemary is the actual Evelyn, who is dressed as Evelyn.
Is in there
with her back stabbed.
And she's in there with the actual Evelyn. Yeah. Or the fake Evelyn, however you want, Evelyn. The Evelyn. And also, too, I thought this was really great. In the first scene, where we see the mummified body of Evelyn first, they open one door, and there's the mummified body of Evelyn, and they open what is essentially a closet door. Like, they're both closet doors, essentially.
Yeah.
When they open up the second closet door, there's just a red cloak.
Right.
So that way, at the end, when she opens up the second door, it's that Evelyn in the red cloak.
Yes.
So it almost double mirrors a moment. And that moment was, I thought that was really cool. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then Franziska locks Kitty into that improvised morgue, and we get some creepy ass stuff coming out of there. She shuts off the waterfall, which is going to back up the water,
and it's going to fill
that room.
And what happens when it starts doing that is all of a sudden there's just these little holes in the bottom of the room where the water will start pouring in. But all of a sudden, like out of each hole, like one rat scurries out, and then a second, and then a third, and then like two at the same time.
And then the water's getting heavier.
The water just starts coming in, and then all of a sudden from all these holes, it's just like 40 rats from each hole.
Dirty, muddy rats.
Ugh, it was so creepy.
Oh, God.
It was so creepy. It actually, I was like, that was one of the few, like that wasn't one of the times in the movie I was just like, ugh!
It really viscerally hit me,
too.
Yeah. then wrapping it all up, Martin figures it out. Herbert figures it out. Francesca is out there. Martin's holding the gun on her. Yes?
Martin is holding a gun on Franziska. Then Herbert comes in and he's like, "You bitch, I knew what you did," and he just shoots her. Yeah, he just shoots her dead. She stabs Martin as she's dying.
Gut, right.
And then Herbert runs in to save Kitty.
And he's like, "I think I know probably where they'd be."
Yeah.
Goes down.
Opens the door, and when the door opens, he just gets just trounced with water, and he drowns.
Yes, apparently.
But Kitty's okay.
Right.
Kitty runs upstairs. They find Martin. Martin survives. Kitty survives.
Yep.
And then basically everyone else is dead.
And then they drive off into the sunrise.
Yeah.
In an ambulance. And it's got some funky tunes over that credits.
Yeah. It was weird because the opening score was fucking awesome.
Yes.
It sounded like an old school Goblin score.
Okay.
And then the end had the worst.
Like
it sounded like
pop shit?
The Girl from Ipanema.
Oh, that's yes.
We both started singing it.
It was almost
after like 40 deaths.
Yeah, and I was like, it's not a happy ending.
No.
Yes, they survived, but it's morose and should continue that feeling. I don't know. Like you said, the self-fulfilling prophecy was super cool, that even though it was a plot by Franziska and Rosemary, I think they were in a bit of cahoots.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there was some...
I think she at least pushed
I think Franziska
her
was the one who was, like, pulling the strings.
Yes.
Well, there was also a slight mention that one of the Wildenbrock girls...
Yeah, I really was frustrated
with that. And the Wildenbrocks are Franziska, Kitty, Evelyn, and Rosemary.
Yeah.
Although we don't quite know that it's Rosemary. But one of the girls was in an insane asylum.
Yeah.
And it's not quite clear whether it was either Rosemary or Franziska.
Yes.
But I'm assuming because of the way Franziska was able to get Rosemary to do her bidding.
Yeah.
And Rosemary didn't quite seem so stable. I'm assuming Rosemary was checked into the insane asylum under the Wildenbrock name.
Okay, interesting.
That's
and
my
secret.
guess.
Yeah.
Because it was actually her, not one of the others.
And that would be interesting too, because then Martin's wife, crazy wife, would have known her possibly.
Yes, which is the Evelyn that she talks to, right?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
So that ties together.
That works. That makes sense.
You know, I feel like...
So this wasn't a bad movie, actually. I really enjoyed it.
I really did too. And again, like I'm a definite fan of these kinds of things. And a couple other things that I kind of... Is there anything you want to toss in the canon before I start shoving shit in there?
Please, yes.
So
let's launch this thing.
I feel like trying to figure out the moments as they're happening, that it's like the mystery / confusion,
keeping you off kilter.
Yeah, which actually stops you from trying to think about the plot.
Right.
I thought was really great.
Absolutely.
We talked about the way the moments are cut together from scene to scene, which I thought was really great. So
that one moment. I know what you're going to talk
about. The model moment that I love so much. So there's this one scene where there's these two models sitting talking and they're gossiping like, oh, here she is. She's sleeping her way to the top. And the other one's like, oh yeah, well, there he is. His wife's in an insane asylum.
What a soap opera.
What a soap opera. And then the camera is like, it's like a close, tight shot on the two of them, zooms out. And at that point, Kitty and Martin come up and start talking to each other.
Yes.
And they have a conversation. They walk away, and it's all one shot.
Yeah.
Zooms right back in on the models, and they're like, can you believe what they're like? And they still comment. And it was just such a really, to me, it was such a fucking cool way of having... It happens a lot of time in comedies of like two guys in an office are like, did you hear about the boss and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It was like that, but it was just a really fascinatingly, like, it was so visual and visceral.
I loved it. It's paired with something very signature 70s.
Yeah, the zoom in and zoom out.
It's not a soft zoom. It's like a rack.
Yeah.
You know, it's very quick in, out.
I love that
like
shit.
It. I like it, but it is very... You couldn't put that into a modern movie without a little bit more finesse, is all I'm saying.
I don't know if I agree with that, because
the speed of it feels cartoony to me.
There is truth to that.
Not.
Well, there was a, and I can't remember if it was one of the Insidious movies or if it was one of the Conjuring movies.
Okay.
I think it was the Conjuring movies, had a bunch of shots like that, but it was those also took place in the 70s. So that makes sense, but I thought it worked really well in those movies to ramp up tension in a fascinating way.
Interesting.
And I think if used correctly, it could still work in a modern film. You would just have to, like,
no, absolutely. I just
time
think
it right.
If it was a little slower, if it was a little... I mean, it was deliberate, but if it was just more subtle.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Another thing that I think could be totally canon for us is, well, first of all, the super convoluted detective story is both giallo, but I also kind of liked that. And I think that attaches itself to that trying to figure out moment-to-moment stuff.
Specifically giallo. I think yes, it is a specific part of that, but I think you see that a lot in the canon films, is things happening to people until they are forced to react. And a strong female character. Surprisingly, there are more than I thought.
Strong female characters in this. It is still, I mean, sexist as hell if we're gonna get down to it in certain areas. But,
my God, yes.
But it was, I feel like it at least pushed the envelope as far as that was concerned.
Right. Yeah.
And I loved how fucking twisted there's an opening scene where there's just like a child stabbing a doll in the face with a dagger that was like,
dude, anything with dolls is always
and children, like, that kid was like 7 and it set the tone like that where it was like, oh fuck, this is gonna be like fucked up if it's got like a child
stabbing
literally trying to murder another child,
right,
and then stabbing a doll in the face.
Also immediately undercut by the weird exposition and change in tone of all of the characters, the two little girls and the grandfather.
There is that.
They were like, oh, sure, she just tried to kill me and the doll, but tell us about this story, Grandpa.
Tell us about the painting.
We're fine now.
It worked. It worked for me. And then I loved the dream sequence, which was really,
dude, that was
sort of ghosty and like
a little
hallway,
bit of, like, whenever the painting,
the dagger in the painting
was shown, it would have a superimposed real dagger on
top
it. It was
of it.
Cool.
There was a bunch of cool little
like subtle
flourishes,
subtle stuff like that.
But to me, the thing that is the most canon, is just that element of score in the beginning that where it starts out sort of like quiet humming, something happens, and then that like sort of synth goblin thing happens. I would love to play us out on one of my favorite goblin scores from Suspiria.
Absolutely.
We don't have the rights to this, so don't sue us, please.
Don't tell them to listen to the end.
I think there's just one other thing that I want to point out that I really loved about this, and this is only as I was looking up some trivia.
Oh, please, yeah.
There's a movie called New Year's Evil, which we're going to do in the future.
Yes.
I love New Year's Evil.
Okay.
It is a horror film. It is canon, and this movie makes an appearance in New Year's Evil, which I think is awesome. And I also think it's really funny that Sybil Danning actually did not dub her own voice, and she was fucking livid when she found out that someone else dubbed her role, which I also think is really funny. And the movie grossed pretty well. In Italy, in '72, it made the equivalent of $780,000 US.
Modest, but the good.
I mean, you got to think though, in Italy, I think even today, if a movie pulls in like 10 mil from Italy, it's a really fucking great pull.
Yeah. What do you expect from a boot-shaped nation?
Well, what is that all about?
Now the Canadians and the Italians are going to be mad at us.
They're all angry.
But anyway, we will make it up to Italy and Canada and everybody else who we've disappointed along the way.
Which is our mothers, our fathers, our friends,
our cousins,
each other,
our unknown adopted brothers and sisters.
Yes, yeah. The Evelyns of the world, if you will.
The Evelyns of the forgotten.
Yes.
All right, Nick, what do we got next week?
Next week, we've got the 1985 classic, Hard Rock Zombies.
Yeah!
Zombie!
Oh my God.
I know, what the fuck is wrong with us?
That sounds...
It's amazing.
Horrible amazing?
It's... This movie rocks. We'll get into this on the episode, but just to whet your appetite a little bit... Oh, don't do that. That's gross mouth sounds. Gross, wet mouth sounds. Yeah, so to describe this movie, it sounds insane because it is. Long story short, there is a rock band on its way to a concert that they're going to play, and they get kidnapped by this family who turns out to be Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun.
Whoa. Spoilers.
Right? I shouldn't
And
just
then
spoil
it just gets crazier from there?
Yeah, basically.
Good.
You can check it out on YouTube. I think it's free on YouTube.
I think so.
Yeah, so
'cause nobody else is claiming it.
yeah, nobody is claiming this movie, so you might as well.
Perfect.
Go ahead and watch it.
Let's do it. If you'd like, you can follow us on all of the things at Creating Canon. We also have an email. You can email us questions, comments, corrections at creatingcanon@gmail.com. And we are so glad you listened. And we would like to thank you and good night and good canon.
Enjoy your goblin, people. I love that score so much.
That's awesome.
It's so fucking creepy. Somebody once told me the world was gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. You were looking kinda dumb with your finger and thumb in the shape of a nail on your forehead. This podcast brought to you by Smash Mouth.